As the reality of what was happening dawned on her, she let out a loud, piercing scream. Helpless and tearful, she watched them bleed, watched the life drain out of them. She wished fervently that a bullet would hit her too, but none ever did. Later, reports came out about training ranges and robots, about how machines sometimes failed in ways no one could predict. It was a case of being at the right place at the wrong time. But for Ceron, it was a case of being at the wrong place at the wrong time. And she spent every waking hour blaming herself for her parents' untimely death. Her mum was only 70 years old, while her dad was 76 years old. She had moved to another city immediately after the burial, determined to outrun her memories and guilt. She was perpetually haunted by the thought that she had deprived her parents of the chance, like other people would have normally had, to decide exactly how they would have liked to spend their final hours. Instead, against their will, they had died on grass, soaked in their own blood. There were times at the early stages of her grief when she thought about inflicting a fatal injury on herself, but decided against it. Suicide was considered taboo in Aliut, and it guaranteed a cursed afterlife. She did not want to live a cursed afterlife, as she longed to be happily reunited with her family. Though predestined to live for 134 years, like her mum, she swore that she would not live that long. If her parents could not enjoy the luxury of a long life, then she most certainly did not deserve to. Therefore, as punishment for herself, a penance more or less, she decided to spend 64 years life currencies, meaning she would die at midnight on the day she turned 70 years old. So, over the next 5 years, Ceron spent her life currencies without a care in the world. She rarely teleported because it was expensive. If she could visit the past, she might have teleported more often to spend some time with her parents while they were still alive. But that wasn't how teleportation in Aliut worked. People could only teleport to different locations in the present, never to the past or future. She reserved teleportation for situations she deemed urgent. Like the time she teleported to her long-distance ex-boyfriend's house because he hadn't replied to her messages in over 11 hours. A criminal offence in her book, and one that demanded immediate, in-person correction. What she enjoyed was recalling memories, and she did it quite often. After all, it cost just 2 months' life currencies, a mere dent when weighed against the 64 years life currencies she planned to spend. She could only recall memories as far back as when her mind was mature enough to keep them, at about 2 years old. Anything before then was impossible to recall. Sometimes she would recall memories of her time with her parents. It felt extra special projecting these memories, as opposed to just remembering them in her mind, because they made her feel like she was reliving the experience. Other times, she recalled memories simply to prove a point. Ceron had a knack for being right, and did not hesitate to let people know when they were wrong. During one argument with Hove, he claimed he always helped her clean up after every meal they had together. Unfortunately for him, Ceron took issue with the word always. She recalled a memory to make her point, projecting it exactly as it had happened. Hove carrying his own plate to the kitchen sink, dropping it in, and walking off to the living room, while she was left with the actual cleanup. She was right. He did not always help clean up. Sometimes he merely relocated his plate. One of the windows in the study banged shut, bringing Ceron's mind back to reality. She realised she had been staring at the picture on her mum's desk for a long time. She sighed and placed the picture face down on the desk. Aware that her parents would not approve of how she had chosen to live her life, shame enveloped her, and then she got angry at herself for being ashamed.
What was this life anyway that I should care?
She thought to herself. So far, she had spent 13 years and 8 months life currencies from the targeted 64 years life currencies she had tracked it obsessively, and had thought that her penance would somehow gradually fade away her guilt. But she still drowned in the same pain she had carried for years. She was miserable, exhausted. Tears slid down her cheeks. She sank to the floor, knocked down some documents as she did so, curled inward and sobbed quietly. The study felt like it was closing in on her. She needed to go back home. Being in the house made her realize that she wasn't ready to be there and face her past. The dark cloud was already forming.
There's always next year. I'll try again then.
An unexplainable wave of weakness flooded her body. Still on the floor, she closed her eyes and pictured her apartment. A few seconds later, she opened her eyes. She was still in the same spot in her parents' study. Well, she had always teleported on previous occasions standing up. Maybe that was the only way to teleport. She stood up shakily, and as she did, her eyes caught one of the documents she had knocked down earlier. It was bright red and had AVROP written on it in bold black font. Her curiosity was piqued. She picked up the bright red folder, opened it, and was immediately confronted by a picture of her parents, smiling up at each other. The pain hit her so hard, like a blow in the chest, that the file dropped from her hands. She had to get out of this house immediately. Already agitated, she closed her eyes, visualized her apartment, and opened her eyes a few seconds later. She hadn't moved an inch. Confusion crept up her spine. She stumbled and clung to the desk for support. Her body felt uncooperative, slow. She had only heard of people being unable to use their abilities when they didn't have enough life currencies to pay for them. But that was clearly not her case, because her lifespan was still long, with many more years left. So what was the problem? Her attention went back to the AVROP folder lying on the floor. AVROP was the only adoption agency in Alouette. Finding herself unable to stand for long, she unsteadily sat on the floor, picked up the folder and opened it. But this time around, her eyes noticed more. Her parents looked much younger, and in their arms was an infant. The infant had a black mole on the top of her lip. Her breath caught. She quickly turned the page and read.
Child's name, Ceron. Eye color, brown. Hair color, black. Weight, 8 kilograms. Age at adoption, 10 months old.
She froze. She reread the line.
Age at adoption, 10 months old. Age at adoption.
The room seemed to tilt. Her stomach dropped. She was adopted. She felt faint. This was too much to take in, especially not today, on the eve of her annual mental breakdown. Her mind and heart were already too fragile to accept that her parents, the ones she mourned, the ones she blamed herself for losing, weren't her biological parents. Denial gave way to anger. Why had they kept this from her? They had at least 17 years to tell her and said nothing. Suddenly, energy left her body. She could no longer hold herself upright, and she sank heavily onto the dusty floor. It surprised her, but her brain continued putting the pieces together. If she wasn't her mother's biological child, then it meant she hadn't inherited her mother's lifespan. Those 134 years were never truly hers. Her real lifespan could be longer or shorter. She struggled to sit up. then desperately scanned the pages, her eyes searching for any information on her bloodline and her inherited lifespan. And then she saw it. She stared at the number on the page, reading it again and again, as if repetition could change it. Predestined lifespan, 37 years, 8 months. Every teleportation, every memory recall, all the time willingly given away had been measured, intentional. She had believed she was deciding when her life would end, but she had been calculating with the wrong number. Her mind recalculated, and afterwards she let out a short, dry laugh. Fate had a twisted sense of humour. Since she had already spent 13 years and 8 months life currencies, she would die on the day she turned 24, at midnight. She lifted her gaze to the blue clock on the wall. 23:46. The weakness she had been fighting all night finally made sense. It wasn't the weight of grief. She was dying. She had less than 14 minutes to live. Ceron sank to the floor.
So, this is what dying feels like,
she said weakly. It should have been a completely serene experience, except for the fact that, even though she had begged for this in her grief, now that it was happening, she realized she didn't want it anymore. Her mind fiercely rejected what was happening to her body. She wished she could redo her life, make different choices. She wasn't ready. Life had been so unfair to her. Why did it always have to throw unpleasant surprises at her? She thought of the life she had planned. 70 years she would never reach, and felt the cruel irony settle in her bones. She had barely lived, and now she was about to die. Well, there was one thing that was still within her control. She could still decide where she would die, and that had always been in Varren Park, under the tree with her name carved on it. So Ceron crawled on the floor, determined to reach the tree in Varren Park. She had barely made it to the centre of the study before collapsing entirely, realising that it would be impossible to make it down the stairs, let alone Varren Park. She had no energy left. She rolled onto her back and stared at the blue ceiling, tears slipping into her hair, resigned to her fate. So this was how it ended. She continued to stare at the ceiling, taking comfort in the knowledge that she would soon be reunited with her parents. She forgave them. She forgave herself, wishing she had done so earlier. She hoped the afterlife was as peaceful as she imagined. She needed the rest.
The time is 0 hours.
Midnight.
Happy birthday to me,
She whispered, voice as thin as air, and let herself float into oblivion.